Hi, good morning. My name is Balaji from Barclays. To kickstart the proceedings for the day, we have with us Jean Viret, CFO from Coherus BioSciences, and also David, who heads VP IR and Corporate Communications, Corporate Affairs. So, Jean Viret, over to you, please.
Thank you, Balaji, and welcome everyone. I want to thank our friends at Barclays for inviting us again this year at their healthcare conference. Today, I'll be making forward-looking statements. These forward-looking statements have certain risks and uncertainties that are described in our Form 10-K that was just submitted to the SEC, so I encourage you to look at those risks and uncertainties submitted in this document. Today, I'm going to cover three areas. First, I'm going to do a company summary. Second, and I'll spend quite a bit of time on our UDENYCA launch. UDENYCA is our pegfilgrastim biosimilar. And lastly, I will describe a broad and partnered pipeline. So Coherus BioSciences is a biologics platform company, and we're focused today on fulfilling the promise of biosimilars. Our biologics platform has four main components. First one is cutting-edge analytics, and that's done in our facility down in Camarillo in California. This is very important because this is where we put apart originator molecules, and we put apart our molecules, and we make sure that the key physiochemical properties are kept. Second, we have a process science and molecular tuning component. And this is the science by which we go from small-scale production of those proteins to very large scale and keep those physiochemical properties as well as preclinical properties. And this is done in our labs as well outside contracted labs. Third, and this is very important, we have an intellectual property strategy. By that, we mean that we navigate the intellectual property of the originators, and we create also our own intellectual property, and we intend to enforce that intellectual property. Last but not least, we have a clinical and regulatory component. And in that component, we develop our molecules on a global scale. We're, I believe, the first biosimilar company that has developed a biosimilar without completing in phase 3, and that's with UDENYCA. UDENYCA launched on January 3rd, 2019, and we're starting to deliver on the biosimilar value with branded benefits. This is not a generic launch. We have also a broad and important pipeline that is targeting today $40 billion in biologics revenue that are slated to face patent expiration by 2023. I want to cover briefly a financing we did recently in January with Healthcare Royalty Partners. This is a $75 million secured credit agreement. The key consideration here was maximization of shareholder value. So we avoided issuing equity at the then stock price in Q4 of last year. As you remember, the NBI was depressed, and our stock also suffered as well. The key issue, as I said, is avoiding dilution at those prices, and we use this cash to invest in a successful commercial launch for UDENYCA and provide working capital reserves so we can complete that launch. We also received a renewed support of a sophisticated investor in the space. This is a second loan we received from Healthcare Royalty Partners. We demonstrated disciplined cash use, and we intend to do that until break-even. As you can see, we used about $47 million in cash in the last quarter, but significantly lower, for instance, than the $73 million we had in Q1 of 2017. So we shifted essentially operations from a research and development shop to a commercial shop. And during this entire period of 2 years, we continue to make significant amount of inventory for UDENYCA. Today, we're investing in our sales infrastructure, and we have a broad commercial sales team all covering all the U.S. That is delivering on a branded launch. So we're going to continue to look at our future sales ramp in relation to our use of cash, and this will determine break-even, and we focus on getting to break-even today. At the end of the year, with $72.4 million in cash, plus the loan of $73.1 million net, we have about $145.5 million in cash pro forma. The platform is geared to provide long-term value creation, first with UDENYCA. UDENYCA is well-positioned in a $4 billion U.S. Neulasta market. There are excellent or, well, good adoption dynamics in pegfilgrastim market, and there are favorable reimbursement changes that are effective at launch, and this is helping biosimilars and UDENYCA in particular. This is a $5 billion market opportunity globally. Should also mention that UDENYCA is approved in Europe, but we have not launched there. Biosimilar pipeline, we have two groups. One, the anti-TNF pipeline, with the key representative being CHS-1420, and adalimumab Humira biosimilar, which is slated to have a competitive entry in the U.S. in 2023. And we have two other key products, CHS-3351, which is a Lucentis biosimilar, and CHS-2020, which is an Eylea biosimilar, both of which are in preclinical development. We also have a legacy small molecule, CHS-131 for NASH. NASH is a large and growing prevalent population globally, but particularly in the U.S., and there are no FDA-approved treatments today. CHS-131 is a first-in-class selective modulator of PPAR gamma with safety and efficacy demonstrated in over 600 patients. There are today over 20 million individuals who are affected by this disease. Now I'm going to talk about the market structure for UDENYCA launch, then pricing consideration, and then patient and provider value proposition. So here's UDENYCA on the left. You see the box and the syringe. On the right, you see holding that box Vince Anicetti, our Chief Operating Officer, surrounded by members of a supply chain team as well as reimbursement team. US FDA approved UDENYCA on November 2nd, 2018, but strategically we waited until January 3rd to initiate the broad launch of UDENYCA. And these are, there are several strategic reasons that I could discuss later during the breakout sessions. We believe that we have ample supply to meet all demand scenarios. Here's the reason why we believe that the market structure is favorable to biosimilars. The rising prices for biologics is the problem we are solving for the healthcare system. Neulasta, for instance, went up about 132% cumulatively from 2006 until today. Over the past 12 years, however, the CPI only went up cumulatively by 25%. So market structure and economics will drive biosimilar adoption and rapid market conversion. We focus on alignment among participants comprising the buy and bill oncology market structure. There are three large groups. First, the payers. Second, the integrated delivery networks and group purchase organization. And then third, the three market segments, which I'll describe. So payers are the key enablers to secure patient access and reimbursement. You need to provide value, immediate value to the payers. Second, the GPOs and IDNs are consolidators that negotiate on behalf of their members. So we've entered into contracts with most of the GPOs, for instance. Third, you've got the three segments, the 340B hospitals on one side. On the other side, I would describe the non-340B hospitals and outpatient clinics, and it will be apparent why I make this division between the three, I should say. Growing segments, so 340B hospitals is a growing segment with favorable biosimilar reimbursement, and it's probably where biosimilars will have the greatest adoption. Non-340B hospitals, adoption will be largely driven by overall acquisition costs. Hospital pharmacists have a limited budget, and they are very cost conscious, but you also know that over the years, they've lost money on Neulasta. Outpatient clinics, adoption is largely driven by improved cost recovery, but also patient access to novel drugs. So biosimilars is a mean for them to provide novel drugs and not constrain financially their patients. Coherus, or we offer tailored value proposition to all segments. By doing so, we believe we can deliver savings to the entire healthcare system and improve patient access. Several patients could not access Neulasta, for instance. Finally, we've seen early success signals across all segments already, and on our Q4 call, we've said that we continue to believe that the broadly launch approach is the right approach, given the fact that it's meeting our internal projections. Commercial payers represent about 56% of pegfilgrastim claims. with only a share reimbursing of AWP, average wholesale price. Among those commercial payers, you have Humana, Anthem, Aetna, and those pay for about 45% of the claims through clinics and 55% of the claims through hospitals. Clinics tend to charge at average selling price and get reimbursed at average selling price plus 6%, whereas hospitals tend to charge at the percent of charge, that is a multiple of WAC, and they get reimbursed a percent of that multiple. However, we've seen a nascent trend where, for instance, Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina have established step edits. They will reimburse for Neulasta only if a patient fails on a biosimilar. So biosimilars provide list price savings immediately to the payers, covering hospital claims, and that's why we believe that our approach is very attractive to the payers. Main customer segments are affiliated with a small set of group purchasing organizations. There are about 9, 10 such organizations. The largest one is with 340B hospitals, and that's Apexis. We have entered into agreement with Apexis, but also with all the other GPOs. For instance, clinics are covered by Onmark, Unity, Ion, and VitalSource. We enter contracts with those. Similarly, Vizient, Premier, and HPG represent non-340B hospitals. When we got approval, Vizient, without us knowing, put out a press release whereby they welcome UDENYCA to the marketplace. So you can see the enthusiasm that non-340B hospitals have toward biosimilars and especially UDENYCA. Today, as I said, we have access agreements with all major GPOs. Provider segments have specific characteristics. So patients are distributed almost equally, a third, between clinics being the largest segment, followed by non-340B hospitals and 340B hospitals. Clinics are focused on cost recovery and value-based medicine. So it's important to tailor your pricing towards them differently than the other two segments. 340B hospitals, biosimilars pass-through status can provide significant value to these hospitals, and I'll cover that in a minute. And finally, non-340B hospitals are focused on acquisition costs and disadvantage on pricing historically. Let me go over the pricing considerations. On the left side, you can see the cost structure for Neulasta. The wholesale acquisition cost is about $6,200, whereas the average selling price for Neulasta is $4,400. We came out with a WAC price of $4,175, and it's providing immediately approximately a 33% discount towards WAC price of Neulasta. But key here is that it's lower than the ASP of Neulasta. So UDENYCA price is attractive to payer while retaining a value proposition to the providers. We continue to do tailored contracting by segment, and we're poised to deliver additional value to these segments. Importantly, and not like generics, we have a unique HCPCS code, which results in the ability to control our own average selling price. It's something you cannot do in the generic space. There has been a relatively new J-code rule in place for about a year and a half. Prior to this rule, the originator would get its own J-code, and all biosimilars were pulled into one J-code. Today, each biosimilar has its own J-code, whereas, for instance, in generics, there's no such things. All generics under one J-code. That provides our ability to substantially reduce the risk of reimbursement uncertainty for providers and prescribers, and therefore favor adoption of biosimilars, including UDENYCA. The 340B hospitals, since January of 2018, there's a new rule whereby Neulasta, for instance, is now reimbursed at ASP minus 25%, 22.5%. They used to be reimbursed at ASP plus 6%. Once a biosimilar like UDENYCA receives pass-through status, and we intend and expect that we'll receive pass-through status on April 1st of this year, the biosimilar will be reimbursed at ASP plus 6% of Neulasta's ASP for a period of at least 2 full calendar years. Finally, after that, the biosimilar will be reimbursed at ASP minus 22.5% of the biosimilar ASP. So during a period of 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to establish ourselves in 340B hospitals, and after that, we'll have to compete on price. But as you know, hospitals are slow to change, and therefore, once you're established among hospitals, we intend that there will be quite a bit of stickiness. So it's a key opportunity for us today. It's a significant competitive opportunity, and it's dependent on biosimilar pricing. Here's what happened historically. Current Neulasta pricing practices create economic winners and losers among non-340B providers. Over the years, the Neulasta contracting has created, in general, winners with oncology clinics and, in general, losers with non-340B hospitals. By that, I mean that typically a clinic would contract at a price that was lower than Neulasta ASP, and typically a non-340B hospital will contract at a price that was higher than ASP. And therefore, over the years, non-340B hospitals have lost money every time they use a Neulasta syringe, whereas oncology clinics have had positive cost recovery as a result of contracting. So this is, you can now understand why Vizient put out a press release saying, we welcome UDENYCA to the marketplace because we're addressing a key need to the non-340B hospitals. We can, additional rebate opportunities and payer rebates further impacted that average selling price and created this tension in the Neulasta space. And we intend to go obviously after the non-340B hospitals and provide immediate relief as well as value to the patient by launching UDENYCA. Here's a value proposition and execution. So we're delivering on the promise of choice without compromise. Choice without compromise is really our brand. We have core elements to this value proposition. First, we're providing comprehensive patient and provider solutions through a portal called Coherus Complete. This is addressed mostly to providers and patients, but also to some degree the payers. Second, our WAC price of $41.75 provides a 33% discount to Neulasta and is attractive to payers without diminishing the value proposition to the providers. Our product, third, is made in the U.S. with consistently positive regulatory inspection records. So our manufacturing site, contractor site, was inspected multiple times and received no or very light 483 observation. Our headquarters were inspected for quality system, no 483 observation. Same thing for our site in Camarillo for analytics, no 483 observation. We believe we have abundant market supply capacity for launch. Contracting, it's tailored. It's not a one-size-fits-all for each segment to deliver the win-win value proposition beyond list price to all stakeholders. Here's a map of our 7 regions we're covering. We have 67 oncology sales managers. They are distributing among 7 regions. Each region has a regional sales director, a key account director, a field reimbursement specialist, a medical sales liaison, and to cover it all, we also have 3 group purchasing directors and 4 payer directors. It is enabling a branded, broad, and deep launch. Coherus Complete, this is our portal for patient, provider, and payer services, and it's rivaling or exceeding the reference product. So for instance, among reimbursement support services, we help providers with pre-auth if it's necessary, or with coding or verification of coverage for their patients. For the patient support program, for instance, we provide copay assistance, and for indigent patients, we provide free syringes. We also help with access to certain foundations. Our goal is to be on par or better than the originator, Neulasta. We have sufficient supply to support a full-scale launch. This is made in KBI in Colorado. The FDA has approved a 36-month shelf life for UDENYCA, and we have sufficient inventory at hand to support the broad launch and any sales scenarios. Let me go briefly over our broad and partnered pipeline. CHS-1420 is a Adalimumab biosimilar. By 2020, we expect that this market will represent about 20 million worldwide and more than 15 billion in the US. We've entered into a global license and settlement agreement with AbbVie, and we intend to launch competitively December 15, 2023. CHS-3351, Lucentis, and CHS-2020 Eylea biosimilars together represent a $10 billion opportunity. It's a large, growing global market. The 3351 is in preclinical development and entering manufacturing scale-up, whereas CHS-2020 is in clinical development, and loss of exclusivity there is 2023. And we intend to develop those two products and be ready for launch post loss of exclusivity. We have a stratified market there, and in the buy and bill, also extremely low COGS, which is very attractive. These molecules are also technically challenging to make, and I think this is a key competitive advantage for us because we don't believe too many teams are able to do that, and therefore competitive pressure is going to be somewhat decreased. CHS-131 is a first-in-class selective modulator of PPAR gamma, and has potential applications in non-alcoholic steatohepatitis hepatitis or NASH. We expect that the U.S. prevalence will reach 27 million by 2030 based on epidemiological studies. NASH will be leading cause of liver transplantation early on by 2020, and there are no approved therapies today, and the FDA is providing accelerated review pathway. So there's strong rationale for CHS-131 because it's selectively targeting PPAR gamma in NASH. Insulin resistance and reduced adiponectin are key factors in NASH. PPAR gamma agonists, TZDs such as pioglitazone, are effective in NASH but not approved, and also associated with safety issues. CHS-131 is a potent insulin sensitizing and adiponectin inducing molecule. It has improved safety profile versus TZD, as we've shown in a phase 2 trial in diabetes, and it's demonstrated in preclinical and human studies with no serious adverse effects in over 600 subjects. It's well tolerated and could be a once daily oral dose molecule. Let me conclude by reviewing that how Coherus is delivering on the promise of biosimilars and laying the foundation for continued growth. We're delivering on Udenyca, pegfilgrastim. We have initiated a broad U.S. launch on January 3rd, 2019 in the $4 billion market. We have a robust supply chain that can support any launch scenario and future demand. At full capacity, we can provide 3/4 of the Neulasta market. Differentiated value proposition and best-in-class commercial team in place. The entire team has over 800 years of oncology sales experience, and that's an asset in and by itself. Biosimilar pipeline is advancing. 1420 is poised to enter the market in 2023, and accordingly, we're preparing a BLA for that potential launch. CHS-3351, Lucentis biosimilar, is scaling up right now, and we'll be ready to enter clinical trials if and when we achieve break-even. And CHS-2020 Eylea biosimilars in preclinical development. Finally, we have a differentiated first-in-class selective modulator of PPAR gamma with potential application in NASH. Thank you.